Welcome back everybody to Orange Track Outlaws. Today I've got a fun little project for you. I had this newer Hot Wheels original, this toilet car. I've been staring at it, looking at it. I didn't know what to do with it, but I really liked the cab on it. It has a really cool truck look to it. It's got some cool fenders. So what I thought about doing was chopping off that horrible toilet on the back and adding a cool bed to it and making this a cool little hot rod truck. So after looking through all my cars, I found this old Chevy truck. I think if I chop the bed off, I think it's going to line up perfectly with the fenders and the step rails there. So that is the plan here. That's what we're going to shoot for. So let's get started. Here comes our project vehicles here on our custom hauler. We have this, in my opinion, pretty ridiculous little toilet truck car. I don't even know what to call this thing, but I think they were on the right track with the cab, so I'm gonna try and make something cool out of it. I got a cool old Chevy truck. I think if I chop the tails off and switch them around, I think we might actually have something here. So get started here. We're going to take this toilet truck apart. We're going to drill the post out. Usual procedure here: smaller drill bit, pilot hole, and then get into the larger drill bit and buzz off the pilot hole. There, the mushroom head there from the post, and take them apart. So here we got our bigger bit in. Now we're just going to grind that little head off and try and get this thing apart. I kind of have an idea in my head here what I want this thing to look at, but really we're just going to try to wing this thing. It's going to take a bunch of super glue, a bunch of JB weld. I mean, we're going to have to chop the chassis in half and mold them together, and there's going to be a lot of cutting and splicing here. So I don't have high hopes for it to turn out perfect, but I'm going to do the best I can to make it look like a cool, how a cool truck should look, instead of this, I don't know, goofy thing with the toilet. So taking our toilet truck apart here. It doesn't really have an interior. It's kind of got a chrome interior. Basically just a bench seat and molded in with the toilet on the back and the fenders on the front. So we'll end up cutting that thing in half and stripping it. So we're gonna get our truck apart here. Not using much here other than the bed and the rear half of the chassis. So I'm gonna get my cab here and just give you a quick look how I see it in my head here. Replacing the cabs here with that bed. I think it'll look okay. So here's a look at our chrome interior. I'm gonna get to cutting, fitting, and try to get this thing set up straight. So first thing I'm gonna do, get rid of that ridiculous toilet off the back. So now we pretty much have our interior and our fenders for the front half of the cab that we're gonna keep. So now we're going into trying to cut this bed off this truck as flush as possible and fitting everything together. Really kind of hoping everything is going to line up somewhat straight without much of a hassle, but like I said, this is going to be a trial and error project, something just fun to do. I thought I could make something cool out of that toilet truck cab, and I think we're on the right track here. So anyway, taking our Dremel tool with the cutoff wheel and You know, I'm just working as much as possible here, trying to get that bed cut off. You know, if you don't, it's just gonna look a little goofy. But anything that doesn't line up, we're going to end up JB weld them together anyway. So we'll try to fill as much gaps as possible. But now we got our bed off, we got our cab together. We're going to do a little test fit here, and this is you know, kind of a look at what we got here. For the most part, it's going to line up pretty good, except for the stacks on the back of that cab. I'm going to have to notch those out. You see, I got that here notched out for those stacks. After we did that, put it together, it actually fits together pretty well. It's not perfect, but I'm going to try to JB weld it. I got like a darker paint job in mind too, to try to hide any gaps, anything that you will see. So I think we'll be able to get away with it. But here's a good look at what I'm looking at. It looks like the rear step rails on the bed are fitting real close to the step rails on the cab. So I'll just have to shave those down, make them look like they're a little straighter and kind of right in line. That shouldn't be a big deal. So now we're going to try to see how our chassis fit together, and surprisingly enough, this project ended up fitting together a lot easier than expected. The chassis line up pretty well. It's not perfect, but it'll be good enough. So I'm going to super glue these together, and then I'm going to take some of that JB Weld epoxy and kind of splatter it on there pretty good, and try to get the best bond as possible, as strong as I can get it. I'm going to paint this thing. I'm going to paint it black. I'm thinking, I don't know if it's going to be gloss black or not, but it's for all the crud and epoxy and all the crap I'm going to be splattering on here to get this thing to stick together. I think black's going to hide it about the best. So just fitting our chassis together here. Just trying to make sure we get our JB Weld, you know, in and around it, on it, over it, around it, all over the place. You know, I just don't want this thing to, when I go for final assembly and start screwing the front and back together, this thing just to go ahead and snap right in the middle. I'm crossing my fingers that don't happen. So it looks like we just about have our chassis pretty well set and straight. Once I feel like it's in a good spot, I'm going to let that thing sit overnight, cure up, and then we're going to move on to the sandblast cabinet. We're going to get our bed and our cab. I'm going to get all the paint stripped off there and get it nice and cleaned up, and then we're going to get those bonded together before we go ahead and do their paint. So running the bed right now through the sandblast cabinet. If you watched any of my other videos, you know I'm a big fan of the blast cabinet. Don't really care for the stripper goos or whatever. I do have some. I use them when I need them, but for the most part, the paint on this come off pretty easy. It didn't take but really a few minutes to get it stripped down and to where it needs to be. After it comes out of the paint booth, just we'll hit it with the wire wheel and clean all the I guess, I don't know, media residue off it. It does look kind of hazy gray, but once you hit it with the wire wheel, it really looks like you know, nice shiny metal under there. You can sand it up real quick with a little sandpaper. You can hit it with a little steel wool if you want to make it shine a little bit more, or you can just clean it up and get ready for some primer if you're not going to need that kind of look, which I'm going to go for some primer. But anyway, so here we go. There was a little bit of a gap on the back of the cab, that I was going to have to fill before I put the bed on. So what I did is I cut out a little piece of styrene, and I'm going to end up super gluing that thing to the interior actually, and I'm going to take a little bit of the milliput and I'm going to try to press it in and smooth around any to fill any gaps, creases, or cracks around that section. Hopefully it makes it look like it's supposed to be there. I thought about trying to mold the styrene into the into the actual cab part, so you really couldn't see anything, but I didn't. I guess hindsight's 2020, but I didn't see a lot that I could keep that thing in place from the inside because of the interior being in the way. So I chose this method. I think it'll look okay. Really, like I said, I'm going to use some dark paint. I'm going to try to hide as much imperfections as possible. So I got my styrene super glued onto my interior, and I'm going to move into molding my milliput and filling. There's not a lot to fill there, but there's enough to where I think when it comes time to paint, you're definitely gonna notice. So I'm gonna try to fill the gaps as much as possible, and hopefully you won't be able to tell. But if you do, oh well. I guess live and learn. So we're going to try to smooth that out as best as possible, and then we'll take our interior out, and we'll go ahead and let that milliput set up overnight before we really get to anything. So now it's time to actually put the cab and the bed together. As you can see, I did use some JB Weld on this thing. Did that off camera. It was a little bit of a process getting it, testing it, getting it straight, letting it sit, and keep fooling with it back and forth. So now what I'm going to do is try to take a little bit of that JB Weld and fill in any gaps or in anything. Try to smooth it out outside of where the connection was as best as possible. Basically try and make it look like this is how it's supposed to be. But overall, I think it's starting to really look like an actual truck. I don't know what you would call it, mini semi. I don't know. I'm really liking the smokestacks. I'm liking the old style cab look with the big old fenders. I think when it's all done, it's going to look pretty awesome. So we're just going to finish up trying to fill in any cracks or crevices or any extra voids that where I overground them when I put them together. So actually, it looks okay. We're going to let this thing sit overnight, and here we are in the paint booth now. After it's all dried up, we're going to hit this thing with some primer sealer and see if we can't get a sweet paint job on here. Normal process here. We're going to hit light tack coat with our sealer. Just try to get as best coverage as you can. Make sure you get the fender wells first. Try to get into the bed and the corners before you start trying to layer it on. But we'll go with our second coat here. Layered on just a little bit better. The cab and the bed were in pretty good shape actually. There not a lot of pity, not a lot of problems. I really didn't have to do much of, if any, sanding to it. So I don't have to hide a lot with our primer sealer, but I do want a good coat on it. I do want a nice flat surface and something to really let our paint stick. I'm going to I got a couple. I'm going to do a paint from our splash paints, some of the new ones we got here. So that's what we're going to work on here. It looks like my focus wasn't too good here, but the color is going to be midnight blue. I think it's going to look pretty awesome here. So we're going to pretty much paint our whole body, and actually the front part of the interior and the fenders. We're going to hit with that midnight blue too. So after stripping the fenders, if you remember, they were chrome. I soaked those in some super clean, got those all cleaned up, and it ended up being white already, so I didn't feel like I needed to put any primer on there. I was just going to go straight in with the paint on it. And so first coat here, we're just going kind of light, trying to get, you know, full coverage, trying to get all our cracks and crevices and get everything touched. I'm really kind of liking the splash paints here. I've only done one or two other cars with them, but they're urethane, but they are ready to go right out of the bottle. No mixing, no nothing. They spray really good right out of the airbrush. They really cover well, so I'm loving that. Not a lot of, not really any, no dry tip problems. No problem spraying. I do use my cheaper airbrush for my urethane paints, for cleaning purposes and whatnot, in case, you know, I miss something or whatever. And even on the cheap airbrushes, it sprays great. So nothing but good things to say for the splash paints. Great product. I do have, I don't know, 12 to 15 colors or so. You'll be seeing more of those here soon. So yeah, great product. We're just going to keep going here. As you can see, it's it does look a little odd on the fender, being so they're kind of like an opaque white, but I'm gonna keep layering it on, and you'll see the color will start to take shape just like the body, and it'll end up looking good. So another coat going on here. The paint's really starting to look good, but I'm looking for as dark a blue as I can get without basically ruining, you know, the integrity of the color. So I want to be able to tell that it's blue, but I want it to look, you know, as dark as I can get it. So I'm going to keep layering it on here as best I can. You know, keep it moving around, make sure you get all the angles, try not to spend too much time in any one spot. You know, obviously you don't want any runs, but as long as you keep it moving, this stuff does dry fast. You shouldn't have a problem. Let's just sit there and spray in one area constantly. So as you can see, I'm keeping it moving. Things are working out pretty good. You know, paint's getting, it's kind of getting all over. It's getting even. I'm pretty happy with how it's turning out here. I think you guys are gonna like it. Midnight blue. I think this might be one of my new favorite colors. So here we are with Disassembly on our chassis. As you can see, I told you earlier, I painted that thing gloss black. I did already glue in our axle tubes, our brass axle tubes. I cut those down to size, notched out our little channel for our axles, glued them things in, and let that basically let that sit while I was painting everything else. So now it's time to add our wheels in, which basically is cutting the axles in half, slide them in the tubes, super gluing them down. I do add a little activator to help out, but I think this thing's sweet. Look at that. We've got a 5-spoke rim, chrome, and it really pops off that midnight blue paint. I did hit it off camera with some 2K clear coat. I put about there was about 3 coats on it. It may have been a 4th, but it was a bit of 3 coats with the airbrush, and I'll show you here shortly. the blue's popping. Big fan of this midnight blue color. But continuing on with the rim installation here, same as the back. We'll just cut the axle in half and fit them in the tubes. Put a little drop of super glue in the pre-cut channels. Keep the axles in place, and we'll be good to go. So I don't know how you guys put your wheels in. I'm a big fan of the activator. I know super glue usually tends to set pretty quick, but you put some of this the activator on there, and it's damn near instant. You can keep on working. You don't have to wait. Big fan of that stuff. Gorilla Glue super glue, that's what I use. Big fan of that stuff. Seems to work out well, especially with the I don't know, it's called the Micro Precise bottle. It's got the long skinny tips. You can get into smaller spaces. That's what I like to use. So just about have our wheels figured out here. Just about got them glued in. This it's turning out really well. I did get the chrome pen out and do just a little bit of highlights here. There are some exhaust tips underneath the chassis. I chromed those out. I did add some chrome highlights to the body, to the bed to hit the headlights. There's chrome rails inside the bed. I did all the turn signals. We'll be able to see that here when it's final reveal time, but did all that off camera. Boring stuff, I know. But here's a look at our chassis. We've got our wheels glued in. This thing's gonna look sweet. So here we are in assembly. You got to look at final look at it. I did chrome out the front grille too. Chromed out the smokestacks. Like I said, I did a little bit on the bed, the tailgate. Midnight blue with about 4 coats of clear coat. Clear coated the fenders too. It's a sweet deep blue. It's nice and shiny. So I'm going to start putting this thing together. We're getting our fenders in there, and everything does fit pretty well from all the test fitting we done prior. You know, you guys don't forget, you know, you're doing these kind of mashups, test fitting, test. So chassis seems to be fitting okay. I did pre-drill the posts. I didn't tap them because we're gonna use some self-tapping screws. Big fan of those. You know, save me a step. But I don't know what you guys think. I think this truck mashup is looking way better than expected. I don't really know what I expected out of this, but really I just wanted to prove the point that the cab to the toilet truck can be used for something better than what it was. So this thing is looking absolutely amazing. I hope you guys are liking progress so far. So look, test out our wheels. Everything's rolling. Everything's looking good. As usual, we're going to take a quick step back and kind of see where we started with. One of the newer models from Hot Wheels that gotta go. Love the cab, hate the rest of the truck. So chopped it off, added a bed, new paint job, wheel upgrade. This thing's looking sweet. So here's what we ended up with, guys. Midnight blue paint from Splash Paints, 2K clear. It's shiny as all can be. We've got our chrome rims, chrome smokestacks, chrome grille. Couldn't be happier how this truck turned out. Something fun to do. I kind of like these mashup projects when I get a chance to do them. Anyway, guys, I really want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you like how it turned out. Please take a look at my other custom videos, take a look at some of my other race videos. I know we have a couple 3 blind mice videos coming out here in a couple days. Please check those out. And yeah guys, anyway, thanks again for checking my channel out. If you like what you see, please like,